gentlemen.
From the Ike Wingate Memorial Studio at Freedom Bend Farm, this is the Ike Wingate Show. From a small town in Arkansas to working for the largest radio corporation in America,
turn up the radio.
He experienced a spiritual awakening that propelled him into radio ministry.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dawson McAllister.
And then onto the Dave Ramsey Show.
Dad is dumb, cash is king.
Which led to founding a small business in 2009 to start a family, and then selling that company in 2021.
Strictly business.
He has the perspective on business, politics, and family.
Oh, let's get this party started.
He's shining a light in the dark corners of our media.
You are fake news.
Our government.
Handling of classified documents.
And our culture.
I don't trust anyone.
It's common sense amidst chaos.
Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here's your host, Ike Wingate.
Welcome in to the Ike Wingate Show here on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. So glad you are here and hanging out for the Ike Wingate Show as we get into a midday briefing, if you will, on everything that is happening in our world, around the country and around the world. As we explore today, Donald Trump and the potential looming arrest that is coming toward him, the testimony that's out there, and also Russia and China are becoming better friends. And what in the world is going on with the veto that has occurred from President Joe Biden yesterday? We've also got mass layoffs happening at a very large company, as well as a city in Canada that has a very unique way of marketing themselves. We'll get to all that and more today on the Ike Wingate Show. Thank you for joining us as we are not only coming to you live on TikTok, but also YouTube and Facebook. So whatever platform it is that you desire, we are trying to bring you the show on whatever platform it is that you use. Okay, so if you are watching on TikTok, please double tap the screen and consider sharing the live. And of course, you can follow me by going up to my profile and clicking there. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you go down to the comment section and drop anything in the chat down there. And then the same thing on Facebook. Let us know where you are joining us from today. We love to know those kind of things as we it's just a fun thing to know where you're watching from. So, and of course, those of you that are listening on the podcast, well, you can't see any of this stuff, and we will edit this part out later. All right, so the big news out there right now is Donald Trump and this grand jury, if you will, and the New York City or the Manhattan District Attorney. And so the jury is to reconvene tomorrow to weigh charges against President Trump. ABC News reported about 2 hours ago that District Attorney Alvin Bragg's grand jury will reconvene tomorrow to weigh charges against President Donald Trump. Of course, Democrats hoping they can interfere with democracy by disqualifying President Trump from running again for U.S. president. That is the opinion of the Gateway pundit. Now, that is coming after some testimony yesterday from a former legal advisor to Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is the star witness, the former attorney for Donald Trump, and he is basically the person they're relying on to tell them what they need to know. Now, Donald Trump allegedly basically qualified or coded or deemed this payment to Michael Cohen as legal fees. Trump claims he's never actually even knew that Michael Cohen was doing this, and Michael Cohen actually has said that to other people as well, that Trump had no knowledge of him making this $130,000 payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels for the allegation that she and Donald engaged in a one-time affair while Donald Trump was married back in 2006. Okay, so there's a lot of Shady characters in the middle of this thing, questionable, shaky testimony. This case has been, and I've said it in the past, probably used the wrong word, tried before. Not actually tried. It's never gone to the point of a trial or an indictment or an arrest. In other words, the better way to say it is this trial has been waived, or this case has been waived by several prosecutors before, as in there is not enough there to bring any type of charge. Okay, so you had several people turn it down. All right, so there is an interesting bit of information when it comes to Michael Cohen's former legal advisor, Robert Costello. He was actually out there testifying yesterday before the DA, and he was able to do so because Michael Cohen had waived his attorney-client privilege for some previous testimony. Okay, so he's well within the right to give information about Michael Cohen because Michael Cohen has said he could. But there's some conflicting information there as far as that goes, as far as what Michael Cohen says versus what Robert Costello says. Take a listen and a view. Watch this video of Robert Costello last night on Tucker Carlson. Any moment now. Any moment. Lovely. You cue these things up and then they go nowhere.
To former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, who made the payment to Stormy Daniels. He joins us tonight. Mr. Costello, thank you so much for coming on. So we as noted, we can't know whether there'll be an indictment or what's in it. But from the leaks that you have read in, say, the New York Times, how do you assess this case?
Weak, to say the least. I just spent 2 hours or so testifying before the grand jury in downtown Manhattan, and I got my point across, although it was clear to me that the Manhattan DA's office did not want to get to the truth. I need to explain that a little bit. I called them up after I saw Michael Cohen on TV stating things that he said he was going to tell the grand jury and had told the grand jury that were contrary to what he told us when we first represented him in April of 2018. So I'm sitting at home watching these lies, and I said, I've got to do something about it. I don't represent Donald Trump, but I do stand for justice, and I think I have a legal obligation to inform both sides. So that's what I did. I had a ton of documents that I had prepared back in 2019 for the Department of Justice. The U.S. Attorney's Office called me up and said, Mr. Costello, we would like to talk to you about your representation of Michael Cohen. I laughed and said, can I presume you have a waiver of the attorney-client privilege? And they said, you presume correctly. I said, fine, send it over. I'll be delighted to talk to you. That waiver is very clear. And once we had that, I prepared 330 emails, a bunch of text messages. I prepared a contemporaneous report of our first meeting with Michael Cohen at the Regency Hotel in Manhattan, as well as a contemporaneous notes of the interview I had for 2 hours with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, as well as contemporaneous notes of an interview by the House Committee on Intelligence, who sent 3 investigators to my office, one of whom is now Dan Goldman, a congressman here in New York. So I had all of this material ready. I sent it to Donald Trump's lawyer, and I sent it to the Manhattan DA's office. And I contacted the Manhattan DA's office, and I asked, could we meet with Alvin Bragg? Because I wanted to present this to Alvin Bragg as I had presented it to the Southern District. I wanted him to look me in the eye and assess my credibility. Did I have more credibility than Michael Cohen? Because Michael Cohen, in my opinion, was lying about just about everything. I specifically told them that there were 2 main points that I wanted to make clear. That Cohen had told us that when we first met him, that he was suicidal. Why is that important? Because when you're suicidal, thinking that that's the only way out of your legal mess, and you're presented with the following options, that you can cooperate against Donald Trump and provide information that would get you a get-out-of-jail-free card, and you respond to us, I do not have any information on Donald Trump. And he said it many times during that 2-hour meeting. I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. And I had my law partner who knew Michael Cohen for 10 years on Columbia Grammar and Prep School here in Manhattan because Cohen was on the board of directors.
Yeah.
And when I heard him say that he was suicidal the weekend before, standing on the roof of the Regency Hotel, I didn't know whether he was a drama queen or telling the truth. So I looked at my partner, and he shook his head and nodded, I think he's telling the truth. And later on, we got that corroborated by the Reverend Jerry Falwell and his wife, who had dinner with Michael Cohen, who told him the same thing. Why is that important? Because when you're willing to give up your life in order to avoid these legal troubles, when they're insurmountable to you, and you're offered a way out, so all you have to do is cooperate on Donald Trump. Do you have anything on Donald Trump? And he says no repeatedly. I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything. Then you know that you've got a guy who probably doesn't have anything. It's certainly easier to give up information on Donald Trump than it is to kill yourself. On top of that, while he's making these speeches during a 2-hour period, he's marching up and down on the other side of the conference table like a tiger in the zoo, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He looked like he hadn't slept in 5 days. He looked like somebody who was suicidal. And every once in a while, he would stop and point at us. And when I say once in a while, he did this at least 20 times and said, guys, I want you to know, I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend 1 day in jail. Now, what he's saying is, I'll lie, cheat, steal, shoot somebody. I will not spend a day in jail. Do you think a guy whose mentality is that is going to not admit that he has information on Donald Trump? But having said that, the DA's office didn't ask me questions to bring that up. And I brought it up anyway. I ignored their questions and simply gave them the information. I'm hearing rap in my ear, left and right. I'll continue if you want, but
well, let me just ask you one final question, if it's okay, Mr. Castello.
Sure.
If you were the DA, if you were a prosecutor and you were trying to be fair and honest and serve the law rather than a political agenda, you'd want to know that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And I told them and told the grand jury today, I was deputy chief of the criminal division of the U.S. Attorneys for the Southern District. I said I wouldn't touch a witness like Michael Cohen for any amount of money. You simply cannot rely upon this guy. And tonight, he was on another station denying that he waived the attorney-client privilege. Here it is, in writing, and that's his signature on the second page. So
that's unbelievable.
I guess he didn't know that, and the district attorney didn't know that. And I told them, Michael Cohen has been in your office 20 times and twice in the grand jury, and he forgot to tell you that he waived the attorney-client privilege 22 times? I mean, really, is this the kind of witness you want to ride to the finish line? Not in my book.
I think all they care about is the finish line. But I sure appreciate the information that you brought us tonight.
You're
Robert
quite
Castello,
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so that is Bob Costello, the former legal advisor to Michael Cohen, and someone who has been given attorney-client, Michael Cohen, who has waived attorney-client privilege, and therefore that is how Bob Costello is able to pass along that information. Of course, now Michael Cohen denying that as well. And so regardless of how you may or may not feel about Tucker Carlson, basically he didn't say much of anything during that interview. It was Bob Costello who presents himself as a credible source, a reliable source, an intelligent source, who definitely colors in some of the background on Michael Cohen. Of course, you know Michael Cohen is not someone who adheres to the law based on his own indictments and making deals for himself. And again, this is the witness that DA Alvin Bragg is going to bring with the full force of the Department of Justice in Manhattan against a former head of state while he is running for president, again, trying to turn this into a felony charge versus a misdemeanor charge. And most legal experts, we're not talking political, most legal experts say this is an extremely ambitious charge, even if it is a, dead set black and white witness proof situation, because it is making a stretch of a misdemeanor into a felony. So that's according to legal analysts. Now put politics aside and look at it that way. And it seems like if strategically you were trying to bring President Trump down, or you were trying to silence him or make him irrelevant, you would have picked a much more slam dunk type of case. Now, there is speculation. There is speculation that the legal case in Georgia and those involved in it are very upset right now at Alvin Bragg for bringing this case because it will diminish the credibility of their case, which is that Donald Trump interfered in the 2020 election there in Georgia. And so now you have prosecutors mad at each other. And so that is a bit telling that the folks in Georgia are not happy with them bringing this because it will make their case look weaker because it's a distraction and it'll look like just another witch hunt potentially. Obviously, we have not vetted out all the details of that case, but just on the surface, that one seems to have more credibility than this particular case in Manhattan against Donald Trump. Now, last week, over the weekend, Donald Trump tweeted that he was going to be arrested today, and then we got information later yesterday that the arrest would not take place. We still have not received any confirmation, and this is important to note for everyone. We have not received any official confirmation from Alvin Bragg that he is actually going to indict Donald Trump. We only know what we know as far as whether or not Donald Trump is going to be charged is from Donald Trump himself on his Truth Social platform. Now, those inside the situation there in the DA's office had to have leaked to Donald Trump that he was, in fact, going to be arrested for him to be able to know. Now, there are plenty of rumors from inside that DA's office that there are people that are familiar with the matter that are not in agreement to bring this case against Donald Trump because it is so weak. It was sent into the department, was sent into chaos over the weekend, and now there's all kinds of security and barriers and things like that set up in the area starting yesterday on the anticipation that Donald Trump, based on Donald Trump's information, that he was going to be arrested and was going to be brought there to their office for the perp walk, the mugshot, and the fingerprinting. So there has been some comments from Alvin Bragg himself that he may try to charge Trump for announcing that he was going to be arrested. Okay, so believe what you want and who you want to believe, I suppose. But Alvin Bragg apparently is not happy that Donald Trump went ahead and made that announcement, which he should be able to tell people that, right? Why would he not be able to tell people that he was going to be arrested? Of course, this could have prematurely exposed Alvin Bragg's plan and then obviously has caused a lot of trouble and chaos inside of their office. Strategically, if you look at this, really a brilliant move, I believe, by Donald Trump to go ahead and put this out there proactively. For one, it always helps when you hear from the source that something's going on. Then when they do actually get arrested or something happens, people automatically assume, they were hiding something or there was some kind of surprise. So it is a bit of a chess match here, and this particular move that Donald Trump made has caused a lot of trouble for the Manhattan DA's office. Whether you agree with the move or not, it has created a lot of attention on Donald Trump, a lot of free promotion, if you will. It has also put several challengers in the Republican primary, has forced them to be on the record on this matter and what they're going to say or not. And so you have a lot of people predicting that this is a negative for Ron DeSantis because his remarks yesterday weren't strong enoughly condemning a politically motivated case against Donald Trump. I don't read into DeSantis's remarks and be able to say that one way or the other. He certainly made sure to say that he didn't agree with a politically motivated case, which he thought it was. However, he got his campaign digs in by saying that he doesn't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star, basically making a dig at Donald Trump. Of course, then Donald Trump comes out and puts a post out on his Truth Social yesterday saying that you will find that out soon, Ron, because eventually if you get more popular and you run for president, you'll have women accusing you of things, maybe even a child, is what Trump wrote, which I was like, what the heck are you talking about? Okay, so anyway, it's getting interesting, isn't it? We're not even really into the main stretch of the election season, primary season, and we're already seeing all kind of sparks fly. So the latest information is that Trump will not be indicted this week, and it might happen next week. So we'll keep on that and stay tuned for that. Now, let's get into this before we take our first break. Billionaire George Soros is the one who has, and if you see online, people say, oh, well, you're always putting Soros out there as the source and blah, blah, blah. Well, here's some additional information. Billionaire George Soros funded DA Alvin Bragg to the tune of $1 million. This is from the Daily Mail. The Manhattan District Attorney supposedly preparing to arrest Trump for allegedly hiding hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels received $1 million from a political action committee funded by billionaire George Soros. Alvin Bragg, who was elected Manhattan DA in November of 2021, had been involved in numerous investigations into Trump and his family before being sworn in last year, even bragging that he had sued Trump while serving in the New York Attorney General's office. While campaigning to become the next Manhattan DA, he received more than $1 million in support from the Color of Change PAC, a racial justice group which receives funding from Soros, who is a Hungarian-born billionaire financier turned American megadonor. Half of the money was clawed back by Color of Change after an unidentified woman made an unspecified allegation against Alvin Bragg. Bragg's just one of at least, is just one in recent years of different DAs that George Soros has funded. He has funded several DAs all over the country in areas where crime has soared, okay? But in the past, George Soros has defended his strategy, saying you can have both justice and safety, okay? So there's actually, see if I can bring this up. Yeah, he has funded several different DAs all over the country, so you got to wonder, why is he so dead set on the funding of these different DAs? Stand by. All right, so he's funded DAs in Oregon, St. Louis, Cook County, Illinois. I mean, millions and millions of dollars, and these are not areas that are known for being tough on crime. Even Alvin Bragg has downgraded several misdemeanors or several felonies down to misdemeanors and put a lot of people back out on the street in Manhattan, which is experiencing a horrible, horrible crime wave, and the numbers are not good as far as crime goes there. I'm going to get you down to some additional information here. I want to tell you about this speech that George Soros made. If I can bring it up. Yeah, here we go. One second. All right, so crime has since soared in major cities overseen by Soros's DAs. The billionaire has been long outspoken about his disdain for Trump. We're talking about Soros here. As recently as February, he referred to Trump as a pitiful figure whose narcissism has turned into a disease. That was at a Munich security conference where George Soros recently spoke. And during that speech, Soros expressed his hopes that Ron DeSantis would win the Republican nomination and that Trump would in turn run as an independent, which would result in the two candidates dividing the Republican Party and leading to a landslide Democrat victory. Isn't that interesting? That's a pretty specific and strategic strategy there. Do you think that would work? Do you think that would work? If Ron DeSantis won the nomination for the Republicans, would Trump run as an independent? He's basically said that he would, which I think would be extremely detrimental to the Republican cause. But I think George Soros really knows what he's talking about here. He's not stupid. And so you could see why, in different circles, why George Soros would try to fund Ron DeSantis. Because his strategy is, if I can get Ron DeSantis the primary spot, secure the nomination, Trump's going to run anyway, and divide up all those votes among the independents and the Republicans, and then the Democrat candidate, presumably Joe Biden, would win handily. So let's think about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of credibility to that. And so, you know, that brings up an interesting point for some people that say that Ron DeSantis is part of the swamp and part of the, he's a globalist, et cetera, et cetera. If you're basing it on anything that Soros is doing to support him, it's basically sabotage from George Soros if, in fact, this is the way he's going about it, which this is from George Soros's mouth at this Munich conference. Now, throughout Trump's presidency, Soros was a constant critic, warning Trump's economic policies would lead to American economic calamity, calling him a con man shortly after his election victory in 2016. He also predicted infighting among Trump's cabinet and advisors, which is interesting as well. How did he know that? So George Soros, a lot of money, and has put in a lot of these DAs as far as donating to them in cities across the United States, with a lot more crime going soft on criminals and resulting in chaos. So the question is, can Soros be trusted? Is this case actually being brought for political reasons when most political analysts would tell you legally there's no precedent and there's no way to actually prove any of this? What else could it be? What other motivation is there? Because obviously there's a lot of hate from Soros to Trump, but he is going to use it to his advantage, clearly, because he already has a strategy. All right, we're going to get into the Russia and China meeting that's happened just hours ago and what is coming out of that, plus the new Biden veto, the first and only veto of his presidency. What's that all about? We'll get into that as well. And what is another Republican candidate saying about the ESG scores? We're going to get into all that and more here on the midday briefing of the Ike Wingate Show. Okay, so we're in a break right now. Checking in on TikTok. Please double tap the screen to get more people here in the live. Please consider sharing the live down there at the bottom with the arrow, and you can click on my face and follow me there on my page. And of course, these podcasts and things like that are posted right there on my profile. You can get to it in the link. And whether it's something like this or other lives that we do, we try to pretty much record all of them and put them in a audio format and crunch it down to where you get nothing but the information that's relevant without some of the stuff like this that maybe isn't while you're listening, if that makes sense. All right, and if you are watching on Facebook, feel free to drop comments in the chat down there. Let us know what you're doing, where you are watching from. It is clear to me that TikTok is really the best option for getting a larger audience while streaming video. It's just the way it is. So anyway, but we'll be available on all the platforms. The next thing we're going to be doing is streaming, adding Instagram in there as well. We decided just to try these others. Now, if you are watching on TikTok and you want to see another view of our studio here, you could actually get it on YouTube. YouTube, search the Ike Wingate Show, or go to facebook.com/Ike Wingate. If that's of interest to you, just give you our main camera instead of the side camera here. So just in case. All right. So thank you for joining us here. And if you, well, thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I am in radio, actually. Watching from TT from TikTok. Yes. Do you ever eat deal dough pizza? Oh, wow. We got some 14-year-old minded people on here. Okay. All right. You trapped me on that, by the way. No, they did not arrest Trump. No, it's not going to happen this week, if it happens at all. Again, like I said earlier, the DA hasn't even said that they're going to. He's never said it. Somebody said they're joining from Arkansas. How about that? How do you like that? Okay. Arizona. Why do you want to join the live? You're going to have to put that in the comments. I don't want to do any battles right now. Maybe when we're done delivering the news. But otherwise, you got to tell me why. Hello, Louisiana, Dallas, California, Illinois, Minnesota, West Virginia, Texas, North Dakota, Texas. Why isn't it pronounced Arkansas? Good question. Do not know. But why isn't Kansas pronounced Kansas? That's might be the question you need to ask after the Arkansas Razorbacks beat the Kansas Jayhawks in March Madness. Missouri, Hawaii. Thank you for the hat. Appreciate that. One purple. Thank you, one purple. Wow. I like those hats. I think I look pretty cool in them, don't I? New Jersey, Fort Smith, Saskatchewan, Nashville, Denton, Texas, New York, Ohio, go Hogs, Massachusetts. Awesome. I mean, we're just pretty much just about to get every state out there. It's pretty good. Switzerland. I think you win the furthest away award. Idaho. A lot of Texas watchers here, viewers. Kentucky, Indianapolis, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Tennessee, Oregon. Excuse me. Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Colorado, Ohio. Driving through Ohio right now. Okay, well, keep your eye on the road. Illinois, North Carolina, Venus, Texas, DeSoto, Kansas, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Florida. There's Florida, Maryland, Brazil. Hello, Brazil. Thank you. One purple. Awesome. Dallas, Texas. Okay. All right. I could probably read all your places that you're from all day long, but let's get back into it here as we're getting ready to come back from a break. All right, and welcome back into the Ike Wingate Show here on the midday briefing, something we're starting during the day to keep you up to date on what is happening throughout the country and throughout the world. Thank you for everyone joining us online, all the way to Switzerland, Brazil, and Denton, Texas. Thank you for joining us today as we've gone into the Donald Trump potential indictment and what the status is there. That was in the earlier segment. You can get any of this information if you happen to miss it by going to ikewingate.com. That is where we put everything into our podcast that you can listen to at your leisure. The next story up on the stack here is in regard to Russia and China. They are getting much more friendly right now, which is not a good thing for the United States. Putin and Xi Jinping have signed documents on a Russia-China strategic cooperation. Putin made the following comments. China is clearly Russia's top trade and economic partner. Trade and economic cooperation is a priority for our relationship. Okay, so that's his first point. That makes you wonder, okay, are they going to start doing some kind of exclusive trade agreement together? And then what does that do to the rest of the world? I mean, the United States gets a lot of stuff from China. Number two, Putin says, Russia's prepared to increase its oil and natural gas supply to China. Okay. Obviously, that has implications on the oil supply and the price of gasoline. The next thing that Putin says is Russia is helping to build atomic stations in China. Atomic stations. Okay, I don't know what that means. I'm just going to admit it to you. I have not looked into atomic stations. It doesn't sound good, but I don't want to assume the actual worst. The next thing he says is the Ukraine-Russia peace plan was also discussed. Okay, so this was sort of presented as the reason for their meeting, and it's sort of a side note at the end here. The Russia-Ukraine peace plan was also discussed. Putin also said Russia and China strongly oppose violating interests of other countries to gain our own advantage. Russia and China strongly oppose violating interests of other countries to gain our own advantage. I don't know if that was a low blow kind of shot, but the strengthening relations between Russia and China, should we be concerned? Should we be concerned? I don't think it helps us. And so as you see some siloing occurring ever since the Ukraine conflict, you do kind of see potentially the stage being set over and over and over for what it would look like and who would be on each side of World War III. So you tell me. I don't read that information and come away encouraged. It is certainly concerning to me that those two are becoming so chummy. I don't know if it was actually just a total bull kind of meeting, that it was going to be about Ukraine, but nonetheless, saying that China was going to somehow broker peace between Russia and Ukraine is kind of laughable, but we shall see. Obviously, there is a vacuum that has been created in this area after we allowed Russia to go into Ukraine and didn't prevent it when it was telegraphed for months and months and months. And so you can debate on whether why we did or did not act. There's plenty of information out there about it. That's for another day and another time, but just getting you up to date that is actually the status today between China and Russia. All right, we move on now as the SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse 2-3 weeks ago, obviously is a major concern for a lot of people out there. We've seen Credit Suisse be purchased by another bank, or at least be in the process. We've seen 2 other failed banks in the U.S., Signature and then Silverline Capital. And now we have First Republic Bank that did get a cash infusion but may end up being purchased as well. And so there's some volatility there. Now, one of the criticisms of SVB is that they were highly distracted with things that had nothing to do with their fiduciary responsibility as part of their banking system. Very, very, very focused on social issues, climate change, etc. And some have speculated, and even myself, when you start to analyze what the people were communicating they were about over and over and over on their website and social media, on the bank's website specifically, it was a lot about these social issues. And so you wonder, did they take their eye off the ball? Were they distracted? And one of the debate issues that's come in to play here is this ESG score, which is environmental, social, and governance. And basically, it is just a popularity score, that's given to them by the powers that be that deem whether or not they are a nice company or not. Are they doing enough for climate change? Are they doing enough for their carbon emissions? Are they taking care of the environment? Are they being good socially? And what about their governance? So it is very much a socialist score on whether or not this company is a good company or bad company based on this particular set of standards that is environmental, social, and governance, okay? And so it's actually creating direction for the way some people are moving money into investments or things like that. There are large investment firms that are basically saying, we're not going to put any money into your company and invest in your company unless you have a high ESG score, okay? And so basically it is a way for, again, these are very, very powerful entities like BlackRock, etc. Lots and lots of money, and they are essentially forcing private companies to adhere to what they believe is a good thing, or they won't put money. They actually aren't private companies. Most of them are public companies, but they're forcing them to adhere to their set of standards in order to receive investment. Okay. Now, Biden vetoed a bill yesterday, the first veto of his presidency, that would have diminished ESG. Now, again, a veto is when you say no to a bill that Congress, bipartisan Congress, said yes to, okay? Which I find this extremely tone deaf by our president in the middle of all these different banking weaknesses and evidence that focusing so heavily on these issues instead of the business itself can bring a business down. But yet he vetoes it and presents it as this is a way of protecting people's investments for their retirement. So let me read this to you here quickly. President Biden issued his first veto since taking office, rejecting a bill that would have reversed a Labor Department rule on environmental, social, and governance investing. The bill would, this is President Biden, by the way. The bill would, I'm just kidding, would risk your retirement savings by making it illegal to consider risk factors MAGA House Republicans don't like. This is a bipartisan bill, okay? But yet he put it all on the MAGA House Republicans, mainly like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Your plan manager should be able to protect your hard-earned savings, whether Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene likes it or not. Called her out, the Congresswoman from Georgia. So he's presenting it like the MAGA House Republicans don't like this and they did all this bill, and that's not what happened. Your plan manager should be able to protect your hard-earned savings. In fact, he's presenting it as the opposite of what it is, because if this rule was taken out, it means your plan manager can put your investments into the best things possible. The Biden administration had previously issued a rule stating that money managers can weigh climate change and other ESG factors when they make decisions for retirement investments on behalf of clients. It replaced a rule from the era of former President Trump that the Biden administration said discouraged consideration of ESG factors, even in cases where it is in the financial interest of plans to take such considerations into account. Basically, what they are letting people do is, instead of making investments for people's 401k, because you do have plan managers, you do have fund managers, right? They make these decisions on where to put the money, and they don't actually have to just keep in mind return on investment factors. They can actually invest your money into stuff that doesn't make money because it has a great ESG factor. Again, we are putting the emphasis into something that isn't giving a return on investment when we're specifically talking about investments. This is absurd, okay? The GOP-controlled House had passed the bill to undo the Biden rule, and then the Senate voted Wednesday to send the bill to Biden's desk in a 50-46 vote. Two Senate Democrats, Joe Manchin and John Tester, joined Republicans in opposing the Biden administration policy, saying they felt it was a case of government overreach that would impose a policy agenda on Americans' retirement accounts. Much better way of saying it than I could. A policy agenda over America's retirement accounts. I don't care what you believe as far as politically or ideologically or whatever, but if you are putting money into a retirement account and you're expecting a return and you're expecting it to grow so you can use it one day, and you have people that are managing the funds and the different funds and the plans that you're in being led by whether or not the company they're investing gives off too many carbon emissions rather than whether they make any money, then you are going to retire one day with a lot less money than you could have, or maybe no money. But at least you will have saved the planet. Okay? This has no place in a retirement investment account. It has no place in business scoring, in my opinion. Those are the types of, if you don't want to do business with a company that pollutes, then don't do business with them. And then when enough people don't do that, that's how the market takes care of it. But actually putting it into a score on whether they can receive investment or not is ridiculous. But you take it further to how it affects you and me in our retirement funds, and basically saying, okay, these fund managers can make decisions not on return on investment or fiduciary details. It's more about whether or not it has enough of a feel-good policy, okay? You think I don't know what I'm talking about? Watch your retirement, and you will find out. The White House had previously said Biden would veto the legislation if it passed. In a statement of administration policy, the White House noted the rule was not a mandate, but intended to ensure retirement plan managers recognize that factors related to ESG can be relevant in analyzing investment decisions. All right, so you don't have to take my word for it. Let's go get someone who has invested a lot of money and has a lot of credibility in the space of money. He actually happens to be running for president. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know if you've seen this guy. He's a pretty intelligent guy. I don't know everything he thinks politically, and certainly am not, getting behind him. But the dude knows what he is doing as far as money and investment. He's been very successful. Take a look at this from a recent interview.
founder Strive Asset Management. Joining us on this hot button issue is the man leading the charge against the ESG, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy, founder of Strive Asset Management and a Republican presidential candidate, and Martin Whitaker, the founder of Just Capital, an organization that ranks companies by how just they are. Vivek, I'll start with you. Listen, it is complicated. It's sort of flipped upside down, but respectfully to the White House, do you feel like in any way this veto or leaving it on or off has anything to do with protecting people's retirement savings?
It does not. It has absolutely everything
I'm trying to connect the dots and I can't figure it out.
Well, let me help you with that. So here's the history on the rule. I'm just giving you some facts here. The Department of Labor under Biden proposed this rule last summer. And at first they were nervous about this because this is really mixing business with politics. This is saying we can use retirement funds to advance agendas like fighting climate change. They were nervous about it. So at first in their draft rule, they had a disclosure requirement saying that you had to say this to retirees. But guess what? They got bolder over the course of last year. So by the end of the year, when the final Department of Labor rule passed, they dropped the disclosure requirement. And the reason why is they said that disclosing this to retirees would actually have a chilling effect. That's their words. Chilling effect on the use of ESG factors. What does that tell you? It tells you that they know that most retirees don't want to advance social agendas with their money, but they want to effectively hide that from those retirees so they can do it anyway. So I'm glad there was bipartisan consensus. That's important. Both Democrats and Republicans voted for a bill to negate this disastrous action from the Department of Labor. And nonetheless, Biden still vetoed it as his first veto, which tells you that this myth that ESG is really just about the free market is a lie. It's actually not the invisible hand of the free market. It's the invisible fist of government, Biden's invisible fist. That's what happened.
All right, so there you go. A guy who knows what he's talking about. Obviously, he's running for president, so that probably, might cloud your acceptance of that information, which I understand. But he seems to really know what he's talking about when it comes to financial things based on his own success. So that is something to be considered. All right, so we will be coming back with you shortly. We are going to talk as we begin to get close to wrapping up this midday news briefing. We're going to talk to you about some layoffs that are coming to big companies, a city in Canada that has an odd way of marketing itself. You might actually laugh. Be careful as well. And I'm seeing some interest come in on these 15-minute cities that Donald Trump was promoting. I'll give you my take on that as well before we close out this edition of the midday briefing here on the Ike Wingate Show. All right, so we're in a break right now. Double tap the screen to make this more known to people. This is the very first one of these that we have done, so stop your hating out there. I see you. Don't be a little twit. But anyway, yeah, you can double tap the screen. You can click on my face and follow me for more of this kind of information. Also, if you want to see or listen to this kind of information condensed into a podcast, you can go up to my profile and click on the link there, and you'll be able to get into the podcast. All right, do you guys listen to podcasts? Comment if you do, and what platform you use. Do you use Apple? Do you use Spotify, Google, whatever? I mean, we're on all those platforms, but when we share some of our segments and things like that, I always hesitate. We haven't come up with a specific strategy on just sharing one particular platform. So a lot of times we know that most of our listens come off of the Amazon or off the Apple podcast. And so we typically are sharing Spotify and Apple. You're the Rush L I've been missing. My goodness, that's a huge compliment. That's a huge compliment. Rachel Maddow podcast on Apple. Okay. Send you the link. Okay, so if you go up and click on my face, you will see my URL in there on my main profile. and then you click on that and you'll go straight to my podcast page. And on there, there's different icons of all the different listening channels. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for commenting on the backdrop there. Thank you. It's good to be here. But anyway, then you can see all the different podcast platforms as well, and you can listen there. Okay. All right. So like I said, we are also broadcasting on Facebook. It's just so hard to see comments and things on Facebook. I cannot see in real time what I can see on TikTok, which, by the way, we'll be talking more about this, but TikTok, there is a hearing on Capitol Hill on Thursday about TikTok and whether or not it will be able to continue in the United States. And there is a lot of bipartisan support against the platform right now. And so something you need to be paying attention to, because if it starts to gain momentum, I mean, even now, calling your United States senator or congressman and telling them, that you find this valuable, then, that could be helpful. Because here's another thing, and I've been doing some research on this, and apparently Facebook has been lobbying and putting out information in different places against TikTok, basically lobbying against TikTok because they want TikTok to go away, right? And so, the information I was consuming the other day was saying that essentially they were starting to, they have been promoting negative TikTok news in communities where there are strong Republican people or Republican districts, and they're grabbing a hold of it and saying, oh no, there's a safety issue, and then they're getting mad and going and railing against it without really understanding the source of it is Facebook, and the actual information that's being presented is related to the harm that online social media can have on young minds, which is, that's a fact, but it doesn't mean that's specifically what TikTok does and Facebook and Instagram and the others don't. And so those platforms do the exact same thing. So it's a bit one-sided. And so there's some concern there because obviously, they talk about how China only shows, educational videos to kids there, but over here it's different. I definitely think, parents should be limiting their kids on TikTok, if at all allowing them. My kids aren't on it. But that's a parental decision. But to actually make it illegal, I think that's kind of crazy, And they're talking about the information that, can be shared. I mean, all that information, this kind of information is on all the apps that we use. And so I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on the surface. What does make sense is that someone is pushing it from the back door, basically funneling money into lobbying against it. So that's disappointing to me, especially I've only been on here for 6 weeks on TikTok and have enjoyed it so far. Now, the other thing, the narrative has started to shift a little bit in the last couple of days. Is it's not so much about them sharing the information, it's the concern that China is going to try to influence Americans to have a favorable view of Chinese government. And then I go, well, that's the definition of I lost the word all of a sudden when I was ready to say it. That's the definition of censorship and controlling the media. So it's okay, well, that's a reason why you don't want it, because it might present you could go on Google and find a favorable response of any country if you wanted to. I don't know. I just think it's a whole lot of fear pushing it without a lot of the information. So anyway, it's very communist. They're actually doing the exact thing that they are saying that they're against. And this is Republicans and Democrats are doing this, by the way. This is both sides that are running around like crazy talking about this. And I guarantee you probably none of them have actually used the platform. So anyway, I know this is probably a take that you wouldn't expect from me. And if I didn't know enough about it, I probably would have that same idea. So, but yeah, I'm like, if you want to make it to where you have to be 18 to get on it, okay, that's one thing. But making it illegal, that's censorship, in my opinion. All right, about to come back here. All right, welcome back into the final segment of the midday briefing here on the Ike Wingate Show. Thanks so much for joining us today. Please consider subscribing to our podcast, giving us a rating on whatever platform you may be consuming the show on as we continue to try to build a mega media conglomerate. I kid. We continue to try to build a content offering that reaches hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are interested in seeing a light being shown on the dark corners of our media, our government, and our culture. Our mission is to spread common sense amidst chaos here on the Ike Wingate Show. And if that is a mission that you'd like to be a part of, please consider supporting us. You can actually support the podcast. There's a link in the show notes to support it. Now, depending on the platform you're consuming us on, say you're on TikTok, you can actually offer gifts for the time and effort that goes into creating this information to present it to you as well. But it will always, in a sense, be free, and it's up to you on whether or not you want to contribute, okay? Now, if we come out with a subscription base next week where you can get extra stuff, that's one thing. But good content should always be free, and advertisers should pay for it. I mean, that's the way I always think. But anyway, all right, so thanks for being here. We're going to wrap this up. The mega tech company Amazon is set to lay off 9,000 more workers. Amazon's going to lay off 9,000 employees in the coming weeks. That is according to their CEO. The cuts are on top of the previously announced layoffs that began in November and extended into January. That round totaled more than 18,000 employees and primarily affected retail, devices, recruiting, and human resource groups. Amazon made the decision to lay off more employees as it looks to streamline costs. It took into account the economy as well as the uncertainty that exists in the near future. That's according to their CEO. They just wrapped up their second phase of their annual budgeting process. Okay. So you see here, as different companies out there, large companies that typically have a lot of capital base to weather certain downturns or storms, you see them cutting. And so that's always an indicator, and this has been happening for a while. It is an indicator that they're seeing something out there in the horizon based on the consumer behavior of their own customers, or maybe the market or different factors that are out there that they are looking at. And so that is something to keep in mind. Now, one could argue that, well, they had such a booming time during the pandemic because everyone was buying tons of stuff online without going anywhere, and now they're just shrinking back. Well, that's a possibility. That's a possibility, but these numbers are so large, you look at it from the standpoint of going, no, they are actually shrinking their business, not just going back to where they were pre-pandemic. So not to scare you, not to alarm you, but those are always things to keep in mind when you see companies doing that. What could it mean? Obviously, we have a lot of uncertainty in the financial sector of the banking industry, so another reason to have some concern. Tomorrow, the Fed meets to discuss and make a decision. I believe they'll actually make the decision tomorrow. It's usually a 2-day meeting, so it may not come until Thursday in regard to the next rate hike and whether or not there actually will be one. And there's all kind of schools of thought on what's going to happen. I think it's either going to be flat or a 25 basis points raise. I doubt that they would reduce the rate. That sounds that would signal, I think, a lot of it would signal a major lack of confidence on their part that the banking industry is a temporary thing and not going to be widespread, and that there won't be contagion. So that is something to keep an eye on, but definitely not good news when you see that a large company is laying people off. Now, let me touch base here because we had someone comment on this, is these 15-minute cities. Donald Trump mentions these 15-minute cities in a CPAC address that he made a week or two ago. And basically, according to people close to Trump, he got this idea from Saudi Arabia, where the government owns land and builds these convenient cities where everybody basically gets everything they want, within 15 minutes of where they live. And, it sounds good in theory, and, it sounds a lot like the Truman Show, if you ask me. But he's received a lot of criticism about it because it is an extremely socialist strategy as far as the federal government owning land that different people are going to be living on. So Donald Trump has a lot of good business ideas. He's a big-time developer as far as real estate and that kind of thing, and he's been successful in business. But sometimes, and if you've been around anybody who is a high-level CEO, decision maker, makes decisions in split-second time, very high on what is called the DISC scale, a very decisive person, they tend to hear an idea and they almost float it out there to people as they talk here and there to see what they think about it because they like it. And so sometimes it's more of aim, or it's shoot and then aim kind of thing with these high or fast moving CEO types. And so I don't know that he fully thought out the idea before he started talking about it at CPAC, but it's something that's been talked about for a while, and it is something that, I would not be in favor of, for sure. I don't want the federal government owning anything more than they already do. So, but yeah, there's supposed to be a climate factor in there as well. And, it's basically, everyone can live sustainably and not pollute anything because no one has to drive anywhere. And, it's this whole thing where, it's presented as this fun, utopia, essentially, but really it is a very controlled environment. Now, it may start out as this nice utopia, but just think about it. It gets into the wrong hands, and then what happens to your quality of life? I mean, there's just no way. There's no way that I would ever be in support of something like that. Okay, so I just hit on that there for you. Yes, you're welcome. Nobody cares. Nobody here. Sorry. You're welcome. Now, if somebody out there supports the idea, okay, good for you. I'm not mad at you. It's not like something that I would, think that someone is unintelligent for supporting. It's just not something I would be in support of as far as freedom goes. Now, you could make a case that if somebody was, presenting it specifically and solely on using less resources, you might think that they have a case. I mean, think about this. It's basically the commune mentality. Everything belongs to everybody, and nobody uses too much, and everybody contributes and things like that. And that typically is fine for a while, until people start realizing that everything they're doing is being controlled. And some people don't like that, and some people just go along with it. So now let's say this. Let's say there was a mass I don't say mass casualty, but let's say there was a huge catastrophic event in the United States, and the grid went down, and there was food shortages and things like that. If you watch The Walking Dead or some of these shows like that, you can see the strength in groups together because everybody has a different thing they can contribute and that kind of thing. So there is one thing for a survival mechanism of a group living like that. It's another thing when you're trying to build a society and have a society flourish. It doesn't work long term. And it's the same thing as like co-managers and nobody being in charge and that kind of thing. It just doesn't work with humans. Somebody has to be calling the shots. There has to be boundaries, there has to be rules, and there has to be the ramifications of someone's actions, or else you have mass chaos. All right. So anyway, I took it dark there. I apologize. But anyway, that's that. All right. Now, before we wrap up here on the official episode, take a listen to this clip from The Office, and it will help as we frame this next story.
Dwight, you can't go. You have a problem with women. You can't sell to them.
That is a damnable lie. I love women.
Gina Rogers at Apex Technology said you call her Gina for your entire meeting.
Ew. That's not good.
Yeah, she said she corrected him 5 times.
Gina said that?
Guys, we can't.
So, one of my favorite lines of that entire show. Gina said that? All right, so let me tell you about this city in Canada and the reason why I played that clip for you, and that is this city, which is called Regina, Canada. It's the capital city of Saskatchewan, is now promoting itself in a new way. The tourism board is catching heat after deciding to lean into the obvious joke that people are making because of the word that it rhymes with. They launched a new ad campaign last week with a few slogans that aren't subtle at all. Show us your Regina is one of the headlines, and the city that rhymes with fun. They also changed the name of their group. It used to be Tourism Regina, and now it's Experience Regina. I'm just going to say Regina over and over and over. All right. It's already, let's see, a lot of proud Regina residents didn't find the rebrand funny, or at least don't want their city represented that way, so it's already been canceled. That's right, it's over. The group's CEO is a guy named Tim Reed. He was very proud of the campaign, but he apologized on Sunday. He told a reporter the board was trying to own the joke, but obviously went too far with it, and then his job may be in jeopardy. Okay, so let's listen to a clip here real quick. This is the... this is the 2008 song Experience Regina that was the main influence to the tourist campaign, and then Tim Reed explaining what it's all about.
Regina, experience Regina.
That affiliation will always be an undertone that we face. I think we should be proud of our city's name, and I think we should be proud of the city that we live in. And for those that want to have a moment of humor with it, that's not a bad thing. Embrace it. We're not changing the name of the city of Regina anytime soon.
Okay, so there you go. That is that ultimately lost him his job, if you will. So I don't know. What do you think about that? You may not remember Regina apart from that ad campaign if it weren't for it. I don't know. I know we have people that listen in the Saskatchewan that maybe be able to comment on it, but Regina basically got canceled. So anyway, Regina said that, according to Dwight. Yes, that is correct. So anyway, I don't know what you think about that, but it gave me a chuckle as we close out the show here today. that seems like a very fitting closing for a lot of information we shared here on the midday briefing. Thanks for listening to the Ike Wingate Show. You can check out episodes at IkeWingate.com. Have yourself a fantastic day.
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks for listening to the Ike Wingate Show.